is the life, eh, Mortis? Who would have thought that just after a few years of battle, Commissar Yarrick would chase Garzkul Nagaruk Thraka and all his forces off the planet and chase after him into the galaxy, leaving Armageddon completely open for the taking. And how long did it take us to do that holiday resort on this planet? 3 days! Only 3 days to make a holiday resort in Armageddon. So Adaptus Videogamus' most popular holiday resort. Right, it's our only one really, isn't it? That's it for us now, Mortis. No more broadcasts. No more running away from the Ordo Malleus. No more gunpowder. No more taste of blood. No more melee combat. But I'm sure we'll manage.
What in the name of Captain Diomedes' flying Bane Blades is Carnage Champions supposed to be? Is it meant to be a side-scrolling platformer? Well, if it is, it's not a very good one. Its obstacles exist only to make sure you're still paying attention to whatever this anarchic joke Roadhouse game scraped from the bottle of Nurgle's most fetid cauldron is. Crumbling platforms are placed willy-nilly and bottomless pits instantly respawn you with the loss of health. Only a heretic turd could survive being mangled in spinning cogs or falling into a full-powered plasma beam. The alternate paths are just as puzzling, allowing you to choose between more silver coins and score modifiers, but you won't know which floating road saves you time. Perhaps Carnage Champions is an action game. You may be fooled by what you're seeing on screen, but the game required almost no action on my part, mostly involving holding down the X button, spamming B, and walking to the right. Hell, there's not even that much happening on screen. Bullets are flying very slowly, your bodies are burning, bombs are blowing up, but it doesn't take long for this to become static, no matter who you play, who you kill, or how you do it. You could argue the game's an RPG, and in the most generous, broad, flimsy definition of the word, you'd be borderline correct. But what role, pray tell, am I playing? A Space Marine? Only the most addled of the mind traitor would think that what you're seeing would dare say a Space Marine acts like this. I dare say those loyalist tin men in the Relic games Space Marine emulate their name better, and the gameplay's not much better than this. No, if you want to see real post-human warriors, play Dawn of War, Death Watch, Space Hulk, or Legacy of Dawn. And where's the second game of that series? I haven't lived for 40,000 years for nothing, you know! So it's not a role-playing game, but it does have role-playing elements like leveling up, loot, and a plot. Horror swept the plot. Okay, so a planet named Mithra is attacked by orcs and they've killed pretty much everyone except a handful of guardsmen and some astropaths, who managed to send a distress signal. Each of the characters have their different reasons for being there, but I believe the Ultramarine, Dark Angel and Salamander are there to rescue the Psychers. Now the Inquisition could have just performed Exterminatus because that was the plan for Forge World Graia in Space Marine when the same thing happened. But no! Command says to send in 6 Astartes, one from a selection of chapters, spread them out, and trust them to take the entire planet back. Oh, and while we're at it, equip them with only the most basic war gear and let them scavenge for upgrades. Let's not forget in the movie Ultramarine there are about 6 or 7 Marines just sent to retrieve a book. I forgot the exact number, but I'm fairly sure it wasn't just one Marine! And I'm pretty sure this planet isn't producing titans like those hunky, gasmic giants from Graia, so I guess just a little bit of Exterminatus will be okay. The story barely develops throughout your journey with only a few nuggets of uneventful plot development per map. Instead of a nicely flowing tale, the writers play red light, green light with the story. My grievances with this game only begin with the plot, and we're a long way before their end. If you haven't guessed already, the goal of Carnage Champions is to quite simply go from point A to B. Killing is optional if you've got the health and armor rating, which doesn't take long to get. So long as you get at least 1 bronze star, which will require a little bit of killing I admit, you can unlock the next level. It may seem easy to get all 3 bronze stars, but if you want silver and gold ones you need to take less damage and deal far more. Thing is, in order to get better star ratings you have to play the same level at least 3 times. Considering the levels consist of the same enemies, assets and hazards, you'll be pondering more and more if it's worth pissing off Zinj so you can be sent to his ever-changing labyrinth. At least there things are different every time. You may be asking yourself why someone would waste at least 30 clocked hours doing this and trying to top the leaderboards that nobody gives a damn about, and it's really just for the completionist. And loot. You see, this was originally a mobile game, as if that wasn't obvious enough, and in their infinite wisdom Roadhouse Games brought the microtransactions over, with a price tag of £10.99.
For Christ's sake!
Thankfully, the Ordo Hereticus purged their insanity and allowed you to get loot boxes and the premium currency, blood ore, completely free, removing the microtransactions and reducing the price to £6.99. However, it's still a mobile game and the time sink is real, if you even care enough about the loot, and why should you? Each marine has a variety of weapons and armour, all of which you'll see before the end of the second map I'm sure, but the aesthetics do not reflect the quality of the stats, unlike other good dungeon crawlers. For example, a highly decorated Ultramarine may don the armour of an Honour Guard, but it can easily be swapped out for a generic Astartes hat, and for some reason the Salamander is happy throwing away his Dragon High trophies for something an unknown grunt would wear. This is because some stats and combinations are exclusive to a certain looking piece of armour, and the higher quality it is starting from common and ending at Mastercrafted, the more powerful and inclusive its stats will be. Getting your first legendary, and I mean Mastercraft item, feels pretty good, at least until it gets replaced by a lower quality bit of war gear with higher stats a short while later. It makes the expensive stat boost bought with silver feel almost entirely useless, existing purely to delay the inevitable. It's pretty depressing to think that when you get an awesome bit of loot, it just becomes a massive money sink, so every time you see those epics, you give them the finger. Another thing about loot is that it can only be obtained in two ways, from killing glowing enemies which will drop a cache containing random loot, which you have to then pay for when you open it, or by buying it with silver from the store. The only thing that drops from every enemy is silver, and is barely enough to purchase the random inventory that changes every time you finish or leave a mission. Carnage Champions difficulty comes purely from what war kit you've got. You can have all the gear but no idea, but still blitz through those Orcs and Gretchen's bastards with ease. Come to think of it, how come it took 8 Astartes to get a magic book but only 1 in mishmash armour to save a planet? Maybe it's CC that's got the right idea. What the game has no idea about though is how tough a single Orc is, much less how strong they are in numbers.
Orcs tend to be just shorter than an Astartes and a head taller than your average mortal, even if they are haunched and dragging their slimy green knuckles across the floor. Not that you'll live to size them up. You have to gun them down from afar, otherwise they get into melee. And they love melee more than I do. And you have to kill them quick, because they've got thick hides that generate quickly. The only true way to kill an Orc is to kill it with the snarling teeth of a chainsword, and you get close enough to breathe in their foul breath from their fetid mouths, and you can taste your dead friends on the breath, and when you slice into the flesh, you get to rub their green, black, oozing blood all over your face and your uniform!
That's a bit more like it.
No matter if you're up against a chopper boy, a shooter boy, an heavy shooter boy, a squig or a knob, you'll either blast it or be crushed by it, depending entirely on your gear. Because of this, there's not much need for clever maneuvering, masterful use of your shield ability, or swapping out your storm bolter for a combi flamer, and other such gear changes. This does change toward the end though. In the final map, neither your gear or your level will save you, and your skills are still a foreign concept to the game at this point. The enemies just have the bigger numbers. It's as simple as that.
It's time we inspect the war gear and the Vox equipment by giving you my thoughts on the graphics and the soundtrack.
In spite of the poor texture quality, Carnage Champions succeeds in delivering the player an Imperial city under siege by Orcish hordes, using the Warhammer 40k aesthetic well. I won't deny that the repeated use of certain assets, animations and locations is deeply off-putting after a while, but the variety to begin with is impressive. I'll never be able to appreciate the visual style until it gets an overhaul worthy of PC standards, but the game does just enough to make me curious about what the next level will bring. To be honest, since I played Eisenhorn Xenos, my expectations of the Warhammer visual style have soared, but you'll know all about that soon enough.
Chaos filth, there is no sanctuary here.
The soundtrack is just rubbish. Boring ass heavy metal beats that match the sheer unabashed chaos that's going on. I've heard better music in Ride to Hell Retribution. It's the sound effects that really sell the carnage that are going on, although you won't hear much except for the stomping of feet, the lashing of power swords, and the pounding of bullets.
It's time to give you my final thoughts before I return to my holiday.
The only reason why I played this game for so long was because it was something to do when I didn't feel like having a wank, which is exactly why it should have been kept on mobile phones. A game where you kill orcs, get fat loot and spend all your cash without a single shot of care, commendations or combat experience is far better received there than on PC, which Games Workshop & Co. should know by now! And having these games on Steam is okay, but since when was okay good enough for Warhammer? Even if we discount the fact it's Warhammer, the game offers nothing valuable but an alternative to better polished, tightly controlling, more strategic and rewarding dungeon crawlers. But no way, in Rogal Dawn's Regal Dong am I going to lump this game in with the likes of Diablo, the delicious adventures of Van Helsing, and Borderlands. And isn't that the point of a dungeon crawler? The repetition of combat and map design is replaced by the promise of epic loot and huge numbers? With that said, I can only recommend Carnage Champions for those who are okay with that, and for the price, that's all you should expect. Still, I think it'd be far better for you to play this on mobile devices, or better yet, save up for Inquisitor Martyr. You know, that real Warhammer 40k dungeon crawler. Should be here any day now.
Until the next time, I'm Commissar Johnbonne, your #1 source for #2 games. You have to excuse me, I'm going to be enforcing the rules of my holiday resort very harshly. Ta-ta for now.